You're listening to Cooper Talk.
Welcome to Cooper Talk. I'm your host, Steve Cooper, and remember, I'm only as hip as my guests. And I got to tell you something, people. Halloween is in a few days, and I'm sort of in a predicament. Because when I lived in L.A. for all those years, I lived in Burbank with apartments, and I thought it would have been pay dirt. Well, for 14 years, I got nobody. And there was no kids on the street. So now me and Joanne moved back to New Jersey, and we live in a condominium development. So I thought, okay, once again, it's great for the kids. They're going to get lots of candy. Last 2 years, nothing. So I don't really want to buy candy because I don't like them around the house because I eat it. But I have to, because even if just one kid comes and my lights are off and I don't have candy, all of a sudden I'm going to be like the dick in the neighborhood. Anyway, we have a great show today. My gentleman got his start with Bare Nakedladies. He's about to go and restart his U.S. tour. I know he had a few dates. He's with his trio. And I listened to his latest album this weekend called Discipline, Heal Thyself Part 2. I really dug it. It's got a lot of different sounds going, which is always great when you listen to music because it's got a lot of taste. And my guest is Stephen Page. How you doing, Stephen?
I'm great. How are you, Steve?
I'm doing well. Now, are you a big Halloween guy? Do you get a lot of trick-or-treaters up in your neck of the woods?
No, I live outside of Syracuse, New York, but we live in this little part off the suburbs where nobody goes. So it's like I grew up in Toronto, and for all my years, even as an adult there, it would just be a sea of kids, and now it's literally nobody.
It's crazy. I mean, I grew up in the suburbs, so you would go, as a kid, I would go from house to house to house to house, and you'd work your ass off. You'd work your ass off for the bag of candy. But now when you live in a complex, you're like, these kids have it easy. They can make a ton of stuff without even work.
That's right. I mean, for us, it was always going through different neighborhoods with the pillowcase, trying to fill the pillowcase with candy.
Now, I know you're coming to my neck of the woods next week in Philly, and you're with a trio, and you have a lot going on, but I saw on your Twitter, which people is at Stephen Page, you were recently, or you're about to be on as a celebrity chef on Iron Chef Canada, or celebrity judge.
Celebrity judge, yeah. So I've actually done the celebrity chef on Chopped Canada before, which I won, I will say. That's one of my proudest achievements. Never mind the music stuff. That's one of my proudest achievements. And then, I got to do this couple episodes of Iron Chef Canada.
I want to talk about your album, but I got to talk about Chopped because I knew a comic down in America named Bobby Slayton, and he was a alternate for it, and he said he likes to cook, but he watched it. And he said it looked so stressful. What did you go through? Is it as stressful as it looked? And are you thinking on the fly, or is it like, do you maybe have a little bit of idea of the ingredients before you go on?
No, you have no idea whatsoever. And it is just as stressful as it looks on TV. I always figured it would be like, okay, that's hyped up. And of course, they're only showing you, they say, oh, you have 40 minutes for this entree or whatever. And they show you 10 minutes of it. So, of course, with editing, it's going to look even more stressful than it is. No, it's so stressful. And then they say, they walk you through the kind of kitchen area before and show you where everything is. But for me, it certainly didn't sink in. So when you open the basket of stuff and they say, okay, go for it, and you look over at the pantry area, and it all just felt like slow motion, like, oh, what do I do now?
And, okay, because I watch it at home, and now, were you a fan before, and when you were at home, would you sit there and figure out what you thought would go in the dishes?
Oh, totally. I mean, it's one of the best play-at-home kinds of games you can have, and I love it. I love watching it, and I love the stress. I love watching people make mistakes. I mean, all that stuff. It's great.
Now, the album, I listened to it this weekend, and it's got so many different sounds. Was that your object when you first started recording it, to have a lot of different sounds in it, and where did the sounds all come from?
Well, I've always tried to. Well, I don't know if even tried is the right word. I've always made eclectic sounding records. I mean, if you go even back to the very first Bare Nakedladies record, Gordon, which came out in '92, it goes from kind of acoustic folk to progressive rock to ska to Latin. I mean, it's all over the map, and I think that's always appealed to me. I mean, for me, my big benchmark albums are things like Sgt. Pepper and Abbey Road that are so all over the map stylistically that I always felt like there really aren't any boundaries. And since becoming a solo artist about 10 years ago, it makes it even easier to kind of just go, well, what's going to serve the song here? What style, what era, what ideas can I throw at it? And you try a lot of different stuff, and you stick with the one that serves the song the best. And a lot of these songs were actually written as part of a musical that I've written that will be on stage in Canada at the Stratford Festival next year. And so because of that, there is an element of serving the sounds of different characters and different plot points and so on as well.
Now, it's funny you say that because I know a lot of people who are musicians, after a long career, they sometimes channel into scoring plays or starting musicals like Kip Winger did it. He has scored his play. How did you get into scoring plays? Was it something, were you a theater kid when you were younger, or how did you get into that idea of writing a musical?
I was a bit of a theater kid. I mean, I never got the big roles, but I was in some musicals and stuff as a kid, and it really did kind of awaken my mind and my interest in singing. And the styles of musical theater, kind of the masters of it, have always challenged and excited me. But what happened with me was in 2005, the Stratford Festival, which is a big classical theater festival. It's mostly Shakespeare stuff. They got a hold of me and asked if I would consider putting together, or if Bare Nakedladies would consider doing the music for a staging of As You Like It that they were doing. And As You Like It has a bunch of songs in the text, but of course without the music to go with them, just the lyrics. And they were going to do a staging of it that was based around the Summer of Love, 1967. So they wanted music that reflected that. So I was very excited by this and ended up writing all the music for it, and then the band performed all the backing tracks, and the actors on stage sang along with those backing tracks. And that was a real success, and I really enjoyed the whole process. So since then, I developed a long relationship with the festival, where I'm now working on my 7th project for them. So I've scored everything from, Hamlet to Macbeth to Coriolanus, and now doing my own thing.
Now, how do you, as a writer, how do you go about that? You said you're doing your own thing, but then you also have this album. How do you find what hat to wear? Is it what inspires you one day that you say, you get up and say, I'm going to write stuff for a solo album, and then I'm going to write stuff for, this production? How do you, as a writer, balance it?
Most of the time, it comes from what opportunities present themselves to you. And as a solo artist, you have less reason to say no. I mean, in a band, your first obligation is to your band's vision and to your bandmates, and to the schedule that works best for all of those individual things. Well, on your own, you can kind of start to lay it out and go, well, I've been offered this opportunity to work in a theater production. I've been able to work on a television show. So you kind of follow those things, and I've learned to say no to little, and because of that, I have had some great learning experiences.
Now, I read, and whenever you do research, you don't know if it's true or not, but I read your father was a drummer and your brother was a drummer.
That's right. Yeah, my dad wasn't. He played in like wedding bands and that kind of thing, party bands when I was growing up. He was a teacher by trade, and then my brother played in bands as well. He played on a couple of my records too. So there was always music in the house.
Now, did you want to follow them and be a drummer, or how did you veer away from being a drummer? Was it just because there's too many people on one drum over the course of the day? My brother was a drummer, so I can imagine 3 people playing drums throughout the day would probably get very, hard on the ears. How did you end up not being a drummer?
Well, first of all, I was just a lousy drummer. I had very little coordination as a young kid. I could barely put my 2 hands together to play at the same time on the piano. So, trying to play a drum beat just seemed like climbing Mount Everest for me. But also, I think there was just the appeal of melody. I love to sing, and I liked, I eventually grew into writing melodies, and that's really where my heart was.
Now, how did you start pursuing your dream of being a musician?
Well, I had been doing musical things, singing in choirs and stuff when I was a teenager, which of course you didn't tell your friends about, but I did it and I loved it. I mean, the feeling of singing with 100 other voices, it's one of the most exciting, transcending I can imagine. And I was never a sports kid, so for me, that was, I think, the equivalent of a team sport where you're doing something in a group, aiming for excellence. And when you achieve it in those brief moments, it's a remarkable thing. So then you kind of chase it, I think, the rest of your life. And I had been writing songs with a friend of mine, like a lot of kids when they have, their parents go away for the weekend, they have a big party or something. And instead of that, when my parents would go away for the weekend, we would, my friend Jeff and I would rent a 4-track cassette recorder and get a bucket of KFC and write songs and record them. And, they were weird little songs, and we would laugh, and it was just, the most fun we could imagine having was recording, making our own little lo-fi records. And then when I met up with Ed Robertson, who became my partner in Bare Nakedladies, we just had this innate ability to harmonize with each other. Our voices just fit together so well. But we didn't take it seriously. Like, we enjoyed singing together. But neither of us thought it was we always kind of joked that it wasn't a real band. It was kind of a fake band. And it wasn't until we ended up getting offered a tour opening for a comedy group called Corky and the Juice Pigs across Canada, playing all kinds of colleges and bars and everything else. And we both Ed and I took the year off of college to pursue being in a band for a year, and we just never looked back after that.
No, it was just you two. What were your shows like? Because, going into a crowd that's ready for comedy, I mean, comedians open for musicians a lot, but you don't see a lot of musicians opening for a comedy, even though it's a comedy group. How did you pattern your shows? Did you try to be funny to warm the crowd up a little bit, or did you just go straight into your quirky songs?
Well, we always had that sense of humor and the quirkiness in our material, and we kind of at that point dressed kind of goofy and stuff. But we knew we weren't a comedy group, and that was always confusing for audiences, because if they were expecting a comedy group, we weren't quite funny enough for that. It was a little more, like you say, quirky, and we really saw ourselves as a musical duo first and foremost. But what we had to do was learn how to structure our set, and that's what we learned from all the comedy people we worked with, was how to build a set so that there was a proper arc, and you could grab the audience and keep them with you on the course of your set, and by the end of it, you've won them over. And that idea of trying to win over a potentially hostile audience, and we saw lots of hostile audiences in those days too, but that was something that we never lost. I don't think I ever have lost. Like, even now when I'm touring in front of an audience full of true believers who know my whole catalog, I still feel like I have to win them over. And I think that's healthy. I think that's what keeps you fresh on stage. It keeps you hungry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I did back in the late 80s, early 90s, I was a stand-up comic on the road, and you would always be, if you had a bad set, it would devastate you for a week. But if you had 2, 5, 6 great sets in a row, it would never faze you. And I think that worrying that you might do bad always gave you that extra adrenaline and kept you right on your feet.
That's right. And sometimes, there's nothing like bombing just a little bit to make you. I think part of me sometimes relishes it, because there's the extra chore of digging yourself out of that hole. When you dig yourself out successfully, there's nothing feels as good as that. But you're right, a great show, they can kind of come and go, but the crappy shows stay with you.
Now, so you guys are doing the college tour. When do you start taking it seriously? You took a year off from college. When do you sit there and say, we have something there, people are liking us? And when did you start? I know you guys made a demo that got really hot after you were at shows. When did you start putting it together as, this is what we're going to do?
Well, it was a few things. Like, we did a Christmas show, like, just for our friends and stuff, and we had decided to invite these two brothers we knew, Jim and Andy Cregan, to come and join us and be our band. And again, we were still kind of pretending we were a band. We were like, well, these are our third and fourth members, ha ha ha. And from our first rehearsal, like almost from the first note of the first rehearsal, we knew there was no going back to being a duo, that this was a really special sound. And on top of that, these two guys could sing, so we had 4-part harmonies, which made us really unique at that point in the late 80s. We started playing more and more clubs around Toronto, and the audiences would grow. We'd play a club on a Thursday night or something, and there'd be 30 people next week there'd be 60, and the week after that there'd be 120, and there'd be a lineup out the door. And we'd start to realize these aren't just our friends and family. These are, word of mouth has started. And that was really emboldening and exciting. We got a manager eventually, and we went down to South by Southwest in 1991 with this yellow tape. It was just a 5-song cassette that we did in one night at a studio, because you could get studio time for cheap if you went from like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is what we did. We did 5 songs and used one reel of tape, which was the most expensive part, and went down to South by Southwest to try and attract some interest. And when we came back, we had these tapes left over and started selling them off the stage. And record stores started calling me and saying, we're having people asking for them in the store. Can you bring some in? And it just kind of kept steamrolling after that.
Now, looking back, was it because you guys were different? What do you think drew the crowds to you? Was it your stage performance? I mean, because, some people go, you can go see a concert and you walk away like, but if you go and see something you really enjoy, you're going to tell your friends. What do you think made you different, where you started getting the buzz about you?
Well, I mean, it's a combination. There were definitely the songs, like, some of the songs that people will know, like If I Had $1 Million, are that old, are some of our earliest songs. But I think the concerts, just people found themselves on stage. Like they would look on stage and see people they related to. And at that point, we're talking about kind of think about the Joshua Tree, Rattle and Hum era of U2 with the looking away from the camera and the black and white photos and the leather vest, and that kind of sense. That's what rock and roll was at that point. And here we were, guys who were quite happy to tell you that we drove down to the club in our mom's car and we were going to go return the drums and do the same thing the next night. And an audience kind of, I think the lack of pretentiousness really appealed to people.
Now, so you're have the yellow tape. Now, when do record companies start noticing you? Was it quickly, or was it a pain in the ass for you to get a deal?
We thought, being as naive as we were, and I think you kind of have to have this bizarre sense of ego, I think, in order to keep going. We thought at this point it was a shoo-in. All the labels would want us, and I have a file folder full of rejection letters from all the labels. And we in Canada, a lot of the labels were basically branch offices of the international or American labels, and Canadian labels were often looking for the Canadian version of a band that was already out there. That was kind of like the easy way out. And I think a lot of people just saw us as a novelty group. And with novelty, if they couldn't see an immediate hit right away, then there was no use signing something for the long term, because it would be over before it began. We felt we were much more than that. And it was eventually Seymour Stein at Sire Records who heard it, and despite the rejection from everybody else, Seymour said, "Oh, this is Simon and Garfunkel for the '90s," and he fell in love with it and signed us, and I'm grateful to him for that.
So you get signed. Now, how do you start getting accepted in Canada? You already had the crowds that you were going to, but did you start getting airplay, and people just started really digging your sound that made you branch more across the country?
Yeah, there were a few things. There was a local station in Toronto called CFNY that was very supportive of local music, and they had like an annual CD they would put out of local talent, and some of those songs would end up in rotation. And so our song "Be My Yoko Ono" was on that CD and ended up becoming a hit on that station. And then it bled kind of from there into Much Music, which was the kind of the Canadian version of MTV, had a little video booth on the corner on the outside of their building where people would go in and give their opinions. It was called Speaker's Corner, and they'd go in and give their opinions about various world events or that kind of thing. And we went in and said, "Hey, we're too cheap to make a music video. It cost $1 to make a little 60-second video. So here we go. Here's our video." And we did a video for the song "Be My Yoko Ono," and it went into rotation. They called us and said, "This is what we've been waiting for somebody to do at this booth." And 5 of us crammed into this little photo booth, and it became a hit on Much Music. And then
Now,
from there.
being...
So by the time the record came out, we had already in Canada had built up a sizable fan base who were ready for this album to come out.
Now, so the album comes out, and how does it sell in Canada?
It eventually sells 1 million copies in Canada, which is called the Diamond certification. It's the equivalent of selling 10 million in the U.S. So it was, one of the biggest albums of all time in Canada. Meanwhile, in the U.S., it sells almost nothing. I mean, it's since gone gold, I think, but back then, the record company was sending us to anywhere that would have us. We were playing in bowling alleys and people's backyards and whatever, just to get a little bit of airplay or a little bit of exposure.
Now,
and so it was funny, we do these big tours in Canada and have tour buses and all that other kind of stuff. And then, I remember doing one show in London, Ontario to 18,000 screaming kids, getting in the van and driving across the border to Detroit and playing to like 100 people the next day.
Man, now, why don't you think it was translating? Was it because you were, people already knew you in Canada? But why? I mean, I always think if something's doing good in one place, there's a good chance it's going to do something good in another place because it's just a good product. Why don't you think it was translating to the U.S. audiences, and was it frustrating as hell?
It was absolutely frustrating. What wasn't frustrating was the fact that organically, like, we would build up our audiences ourselves in the U.S. the same way that we had in Canada. We'd play some city, and people would find out about us, and by the time we came back, the audiences would grow. And so we would just make an effort to keep coming back over and over again and grow those audiences ourselves without the radio support. And I think some of the reason why we didn't get that support, beyond the fact that we had kind of an image and a sound that might have been slightly out of step with at that point, the grunge music and so on that was happening. But I think people felt like in the radio business that success in Canada wasn't real success, that it was somehow propped up because Canada does have these Canadian content regulations, which insist that a certain percentage of stuff on Canadian radio is by Canadian artists, which was developed so that they didn't just mirror American radio, which is what they would do otherwise. It kind of forces them to support Canadian culture. But then it makes people internationally skeptical of any kind of Canadian success.
Now, you said it was a Diamond album in Canada. So when you follow that album up, is there a lot of pressure on you guys just because it was so big, and did the record companies expect the next one to be so big also?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly left us alone to make the record we wanted to make. But when that record came out, I mean, it sold double platinum in Canada, which is still big, but compared to 10 times, it seems like a failure. And, we'd go on the road, and what we realized in Canada particularly was that we had, if you play one city when your record comes out, and then you play it again for whatever, college homecoming week or something like that, and then you play a summer fair, and then your next album comes out again, people think, I've already seen them 3 times, I'm not going to go back and see them again. Where in the U.S., there are so many more cities to play that it takes you a lot longer to burn out an audience. But what happened that was great for us was because we had sold so much of our first record, our second record was already recouped by the time it came out. So I think in any other situation, we probably would have been dropped after our second album, but we didn't owe the label any money, so we could just kind of keep going. And it wasn't until our third album, and we changed management at that point as well, that we had eventually had a hit in the United States with the old apartment.
Now, in Canada, were you getting recognized because you guys were a big band? Were you noticing that, you sell all these albums, did people start recognize you, and what was that like? Just because you guys started off just quirky and having fun.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we would get recognized everywhere. You'll go out and, hey, Bare Nakedladies guy, or Bare Nakedladies suck, or whatever, wherever you are.
Now, when you started getting the success in the U.S., how did you unfold to get more success in the U.S.?
Well, one of the things that had happened was in that time where the old apartment had become a hit, was we had developed relationships with our record company, but with promoters and like concert concert promoters and record or radio stations and so. And it was one of these things where the song was a hit in one area, and then it would drop off the chart, and then it'd be a hit somewhere else, and then it would drop off the chart. And it was like a whole year of that song being a hit in different regions across the U.S. So by the time One Week came out in 1998, everybody was ready. It was like everything was all lined up, ready for this to happen. Not that we necessarily knew it was going to be, but there were lots of places where we were now playing arenas, and without a ton of radio support or visibility. And then all of a sudden, One Week comes out, and it goes to number one, and the video gets played like crazy, and we've kind of crossed over into the mainstream. After 6 or 7 years at this point of touring almost nonstop.
Now, what is it like to have a number one hit? Like, what is it to sit there and wake up and go, holy crap, we're not on top of Billboard, and to hear it all the time? Is it a feeling that you're so excited, or after a while do you sit there and go, we've really heard this song a lot now?
Oh, no, it was really exciting. I mean, it's one of those things where I think we weren't even necessarily, we'd been the butt of so many jokes for so long that we weren't overly concerned about what other people thought or whether we were sick of the song or not. I mean, we rearranged it over time after singing it for a long time and did like a bluegrass version of it, but the spirit of the song continued, and we were just...
Hello?
Hello, you can't hear me?
You just cut out for a second. You said we continued the spirit of the song.
Oh, yeah. So we continued, the spirit of the song in different arrangements of it, but we were never embarrassed by it or sick of it, because I think we just felt like after all that time of touring, of just being on the road almost nonstop for 7 years, we felt like this was the payoff. It was a great success to celebrate.
Now, as a musician, what is it like when you know that when you kick into that one song, like you said, even if you're having a little bit of a bad night, when you kick into that one song, the crowd is going to go crazy? Does that give you extra confidence as a musician?
You know what it gives me now, like this far into my career, is I realize a song, a song that is kind of a unifier for the audience, or it's a big hit or something. When you get into playing that and they all respond, it takes a long time as a performer to realize they're not necessarily responding to you as a person or as a performer. What they're responding to is what that song means to them and what it represents in their own memories, in their own life, and they're kind of bringing all those kinds of memories back to this one place together, and they all kind of live together in that moment. And I just feel really fortunate to be able to share in that. And I think when I was able to finally kind of let go of my own sense of possessiveness of that material and share it with the audience, it's an amazing feeling.
Now, with Bare Nakedladies, you did a lot of the writing. What is that like when you do a lot of the writing? Do you feel that it's more your band, or is it something that you just know your friends, because they're band members, so well, you know exactly what to write for them?
I think in a way I always felt like it was mine and Ed's band as the two of us were the ones who started it. It was kind of our vision, but everybody had a voice. We wouldn't do stuff if it was certainly always majority rule, and if somebody was particularly passionate against or for something, we would also follow that. I think it was pretty respectful that way. But like when it comes down to things like doing a demo of a song, as I got more and more into the concept of recording and the practice of recording, I'd start to make demos that were a lot more elaborate, and playing bass and writing out drum patterns or whatever else. And I realized that was because part of what made us the band with our own sound was the contribution that everybody made with their own parts to the songs. So I stopped doing that and kind of tried to make them a little bit more stripped down so people could still find room to express themselves in the songs I wrote.
Now, down the road, when you were in the band, you guys started your own record label. How did that happen? I mean, what made you decide to do it that way?
Well, we were at the end of our agreement with Warner Brothers, and I think started to figure out that their bet, they were hedging their bet a little bit on the idea of, okay, they're never going to have another hit as big as their biggest hit, which is, I think, statistically probably absolutely true. So we could be beholden to this label for another 3 or 4 records or whatever, and not get the same, not get all the weight of their marketing dollars and their promotional push and so on. And at the end of the day, the label would still own the recording. This way, if we started our own label, we had owned the rights to our own publishing, then we could control how stuff was sold out there. This was in the point where people were, the labels were suing people for downloading music illegally, quote unquote, before the times of streaming services. And we didn't want to get caught up in that. We didn't want to sue our own fans. So we wanted to be able to make music and make it as available as possible and sell it on whatever mediums we wanted to. And owning it ourselves allowed us to do that.
So you're sitting there, you're releasing your own music, and I guess you can decide really what you want to release. Were you getting a little antsy and wanting to go a different direction by this time? Because I know you left in 2009, but at what point did you sit there and start feeling that you might want to branch a different way?
Well, I put out my first solo record in 2005, so 4 years before I left the group, and I'd actually recorded that a couple of years before that. And it was one of those things, like, how do you release this and not feel like you're competing? So, I kind of shuffle it to the back and put it out under the name The Vanity Project, kind of hide behind the name. And, I realized I was kind of compromising what I wanted to do in order to keep the band's interests at heart, which was, I think, the right thing to do if I was going to be committed to that group. But as time went on, we kind of, everybody had different goals as to how they wanted to tour, what kind of record they wanted to make, when they wanted to put records out, and so on. And it stopped being, I stopped feeling like we were all on the same page by that point.
So you leave in 2009. Now you guys have been together for about 20 years. What is it like when you are now going on a solo career? Because you are associated by one with the band, which is a plus. But if you want to go in a different direction, that can be a minus because people are going to expect Bare Nakedladies sound for you. How did you attack that whole change?
The whole thing was kind of starting again, and I was absolutely. I mean, I had like you said, it's the plus and the minus of having the band association. Is like, a lot of people don't necessarily know what every individual's contribution to each band is. So to get back out there, reintroduce yourself and go, okay, this is the voice of 2 lead singers that you might recognize. This is what my writing style is. But also here, let me try something different. And there are some people who probably wouldn't listen to you because they didn't like the band, and other people who would listen to you but don't know you're not in the band. Like, there's all those kinds of ways of trying to reach people. And that can drive you nuts if you think too hard about it. I realize now how lucky I am to have that association of the band, and I'm certainly proud of everything we did together. But then getting out there and playing without the comfort and security of the 4 guys that I've played with since I was 18 was scary. And I've, over time, again, found collaborators who I'm really comfortable with and am able to play and stretch boundaries in ways that I couldn't before. Now there's no preconceived notions as to what my role is, whether it's with the trio or with a group like the Art of Time Ensemble I recorded with, or the theatrical stuff, or even just when I'm playing by myself. I can always kind of push myself and challenge myself that way.
Now, when you first left the band, did you automatically switch into a different mode for writing? Because now, as you said, you're writing for yourself. I'm sure part of your writing and yourself was in Bare Nakedladies, but another part is you growing differently. How did it affect your writing when you first left the band?
Well, I mean, I think I continued writing as myself and wasn't going to try to change persona or anything bands, but I was able to, collaborate with whomever I wanted. So, for instance, Craig Northey from the band The Odds, who he's part of my trio on the road as well. He and I started writing a lot together. That's the kind of thing you can't necessarily do in a band, because writing with an outside person, which I did to some degree with a guy named Stephen Duffy. He and I did a bunch of writing while I was in Bare Nakedladies, and it didn't sit that great with the other band members. And here I didn't have to ask anybody's permission. I could work with one drummer on one song and another drummer on another song, and nobody's feelings get hurt. And it's not betraying the idea of what the concept is. It's about serving whatever I think is going to work best for the music, and learn to collaborate with other people and meet new people. It takes time, but making that first record with John Fields, Page One, that came out in 2010, that was a huge step forward for me to be able to remember or realize that I know how to make records, and I've been doing it for 20 years at that point, and that it was kind of in my blood.
Now, how did you hook up with Stephen Duffy? How did, I know I read something where you were a fan of his, and how did that happen? How did you get together?
Yeah, when I was 15, I bought his first album, The Ups and Downs, and loved it. I mean, it was kind of the soundtrack to that summer of my first heartbreak and everything else. And when that, I wrote him a fan letter, as you would do in 1985. There was no internet to send anybody a tweet or a direct message or anything else. And I sent him a fan letter, and he wrote back. Now, I think still to this day can't exactly explain why, but I think he felt a connection with me that I had felt with his music. And when I was 19, I went over to England for the summer to study at Cambridge University, and I had some time before that and had written him to tell him, and he offered for me to come and stay with him and his band while they were rehearsing, which I did for a few days, which was terrifying and exciting and all of that. And then a few years later, when Bare Nakedladies were really happening and taking off, we were playing at the Bottom Line in New York City, and he happened to be in town. So he came by the gig, and we were hanging out that night, and he said, well, do you want to write some songs together? Well, I mean, that was kind of the question I always been hoping for, and there it was, finally happening for me. And it was he came up to Toronto, and what was supposed to be 2 weeks turned into 6 weeks of writing, and we wrote a lot of the second Bare Nakedladies album then, and it's been great for him since.
Now, when your first solo album came out, what was going through your mind? Because you said before, it was nervous. It was nerve-wracking when you left the band because you're on your own. What were you expecting from that first album, and were you happy with the end product?
Yeah, I was really excited about the album and really proud of it, and I still am. But I think, in order to survive, sometimes you need to delude yourself. And just like when we were 19, thinking that every band, every label in the world would want to sign us, I think I probably had some of that same delusion, thinking this album will come out and everybody will say, oh, we love this album, and it becomes some kind of big hit. I have much more realistic expectations now, because I've released a couple since then. But at that point, it was disappointing that people didn't really pick up on it.
Now, this latest album is a part 2. Was that planned when you wrote part 1? I want to hear the story about part 1 and part 2.
Yeah, part 1 and part 2 were originally initially it was going to be one kind of large double album, mostly songs that were part of my writing process for this musical I was telling you about, called Here's What It Takes. And by the time, I thought releasing 30 songs all at once was a lot to ask of an audience, to kind of ask them to digest that much material all at once. And then I thought selfishly too, it's like an album, as I've now realized in this day and age, unless it's a huge hit, an album lasts a week or two in people's consciousness before it disappears, into the long tail of the streaming services. So I thought, well, maybe if I break this into 2 parts, it'll have more of a life. But of course, by the time I released part one and toured that, and then it was time to get ready to get part two finished, because I hadn't finished all those songs. Some of them dropped off because I wasn't as fond of them, or I didn't feel they fit anymore. And I'd written a whole bunch of new songs, so it really did become quite a different album that I think, for me, shows the progress that I made with myself, at least over the years, the couple of years in between.
Now, where did the title "Heal Thyself" come from?
Well, I mean, I guess it comes from the Bible, but I was thinking of Jesus Christ Superstar. But it is that I got so bombarded with people asking if I'm okay and telling me the right way to fix yourself and so on, because as if there's something truly wrong with me. And so it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek approach to working on yourself, but there is also the kind of deeply sincere and earnest part of it, which is about what I've learned is that being a solo artist, or being Stephen Page myself, because that was a big thing when I left that band. My identity was so wrapped up in that. I was, how could I be Stephen Page and not be Bare Nakedladies Stephen Page? And for me to kind of realize that in order to go it alone, I need to do it with other people, if that makes any sense. It's like, no matter what I do solo, it's always a collaboration, whether it's with your family, with other musicians, with the other kinds of people that you work with. Now, and really, to do it yourself doesn't really do it justice.
And so then you just continued that when you came out with this latest one, the part two?
That's right. Yeah.
Now, the songs, as I say, it's funny, I always take little notes. I know Wrestling Through the Dark sort of reminded me of, like, in the beginning, like a loungiest Cat Stevens. Do you ever have any influences when you listen to it? Because do you sit there, when you sit down to write, where does it come from? Because, White Noise sounds sort of punkish and like the Knack, and then you have another one that sort of sounds like that Feliz Navidad kind of sound. How do you write? When you sit down, how do you know what you're going to write? Because and I love the fact that all the songs are different. It's not the same thing in a row, in a row, in a row.
Right. You kind of just, as it starts to come out, I think, I don't know, where's this going? I never know where it's going until I'm kind of halfway there, and then I start to struggle with it, and I start to that's when you start to get granular and try and figure out the right approach. But sometimes it's just a matter of just letting the music take you to where we want to go. Like when the Charlottesville Unite the Right demonstration happened a couple years ago, and I'm not the kind of person who necessarily runs to write a topical protest song, but I saw that and was so horrified I ran downstairs and started writing this song, and White Noise came out. And I guess I was thinking of bands that I grew up listening to, like The Jam and The Clash and Billy Bragg and those kinds of things who are always political and pointed, and I think the music reflects that. But then you go to another song like Whistling Through the Dark, and it's like, well, it's kind of a sardonic Sinatra is how I look at it.
Now, it's funny because I did write down The Jam on White Noise. I did, because that's what the opening sounded like. Now,
sure.
If you write everything, how do you write a part for horns, or do you let someone come in, like What I Got, there's horns in there. Do you have a musician, you find a musician who comes in and just adds it, or do you actually write a part out for a horn?
Depends on the song. For that one, for What I Got From You, I wrote that part. There's other songs like Feel Good Summer that I would write a sketch of what I wanted to hear in a section, and then I'll have the horn player, this guy Bryden Baird, who I've used on the last 3 records playing trumpet. I know him really well, and I trust him, but also take a few tracks of your own ideas here. And same thing like with the cello, with Kevin Fox, who plays with me in my trio. I'll have him, I'll give him a sketch of what I want to do, and sometimes I will write out stuff that I specifically want, but then I'll certainly encourage them to add stuff.
Now, what was it like working with new musicians as your solo career went on? Because as you said, you've been with the band for so long and that was part of your identity. Did you have a hard time trusting new musicians because they didn't know which direction you're going to go into, which the band probably knew exactly when you played together, you had that autonomy?
Not really. I mean, actually, one of the most exciting things about doing this is learning to let go and trust, and to trust people to bring their own musicality to whatever I'm doing. So I often say to new musicians I'm working with, I might have a specific part I want them to play, but I often say, like, let's not do this like a cover band. I want to hear you play this. And if it's an old song, and if it's a new song, I want them to bring to it what they would bring. I think, that's the most exciting part.
Now, you said the trio. What made you decide to go on the road as a trio? And will that take away from some of your new songs that have different instruments? What instruments do you have, the trio? You probably have a drummer, and I think a celloist, and you?
It's myself on acoustic guitar and piano, Craig Northey on electric guitar, and Kevin Fox on cello. So that's all it is. And then we occasionally have somebody who plays percussion with us too. And it started off, I was doing a lot of duo dates. Like I do full rock band dates as well. But I find quite often, it works in a big setting, it works in a festival setting. And it's also super expensive having a lot of people in a band on the road. With this trio, I was taking two different duos that I was doing, and I put them together to make this. A couple of years ago, I was booked to play a 2-week residency at the Cafe Carlisle in the Carlisle Hotel in New York City. And it's, a super fancy Upper East Side kind of black tie cabaret, old style cabaret. And I decided to bring this trio as the way to showcase that, because there really isn't room there for a big full band. And we realized after doing this run how much we loved playing together as this trio, because it gives you space for everybody to be heard and also to really find what makes those songs. And sometimes you don't need to have all those instruments that are in the record. Let the record be the record and let the songs speak for themselves.
Now, when you play in a trio, because you said you guys were having fun, is there a lot of improvisation? I can't forget it. Do you guys improv? Do you improv a lot on just the musical parts?
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, we have arrangements that we strive to stick to when we're doing these songs. But if someone wants to go off somewhere, we'll certainly encourage it. And there's lots of improv elsewhere in the show too, where I'll make up songs and the guys go with me, or we do long riffs on other ideas, and that's a lot of fun.
Now, what is it like adjusting to a smaller crowd? Because I know in Philly you're playing at the City Winery, which is new, and you're playing different dates. From when you play with the bigger crowds in Canada when you were Bare Nakedladies, what do you find more comforting? Because a lot of people like a smaller crowd better because it's more intimate, and you can see people, and you can actually feel like you're connecting better. Is that the feeling you get?
Yes, although I certainly wouldn't say no to playing larger venues. It's not like I go, I'm playing these little ones because I like it better. But it's what the economy allows for, and it's what kind of what I can sell right now. However, I've learned, I'm not nostalgic about the old days of playing in the clubs, but I've learned to find a new way of playing that keeps these feeling very intimate and special for us on stage. And I think that's the nice thing that comes out of it, is audiences feel like they've experienced something special.
Now, do you have a prepared set list for every show, or do you just have a few points that you're going to play and then just you run from that? You just go from that.
We have a full set list that we follow, but that we'll call audibles now and again, or quite often actually, and kind of in the middle of the set, there's a section that you can usually go way off the rails if it dictates.
And now, will you be playing Bare Nakedladies music and the new album and some old favorites of yours, or how do you create your set list?
Yeah, we do stuff all the way from the earliest Bare Nakedladies album all the way up to the most recent stuff. And I used to think I had to make excuses for that, and I'm so lucky that my audience, can't say, well, I know you're really here for the new stuff. Because you see bands, sometimes you go see bands that you've liked for years, and you go, well, of course you're going to play some new stuff, but I hope they play the old favorites. Well, I do play the old favorites, but I think audiences tend to look at the new stuff as their way of catching up and checking in, and that means a lot to me.
Now, when you play the new stuff and the people are enjoying it, is it fresher because you're playing it, you haven't played it as much on stage, or is it pretty much you just put the energy and kick ass during your whole show?
Well, I mean, it does take us a long time to kind of get our arrangements for this new material, especially stuff if we're reducing it to a trio format. So some songs will take a lot of rehearsals and sound check before they make it into the set list, and then of course you're concentrating extra hard. I really like the fact that the new stuff seems to hang quite well with the old stuff in the set list.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, Steve. It was great, and I know you start you're in Niagara Falls November 1st, and then you have a bunch of cities on the East Coast. And I saw you're on Twitter. You're at Stephen Page, and you seem to tweet a lot. Are you a busy tweeter?
Yeah, although I admit most of the time it's like just keeping people informed as to what's going on with like shows and recordings and that kind of stuff. I used to be a little more social with the social media, but too many trolls out there.
Yeah, it's crazy. Now, November 5th, you'll be in Philly. That's also your mom's birthday. You're going to play a little happy birthday for her? You're going to do something? I mean, what are you going to do?
I'll find some way to sing something for her. She won't be there, but I'll be thinking of her and sing something for her for sure.
That's good. I want to thank you for coming on. People, go to StephenPage.com. Follow him at Twitter, at Stephen Page. Go to my website, CooperTalk.net. Email me, Cooper@CooperTalk.net. Twitter is at CooperTalk. So remember, I'm Steve Cooper. I'm only as hip as my guests. Don't forget, drink your water, eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, and I'll talk to you guys next time.